Grading the surface of gaming cards is quite different than grading the surface of sports cards and also non-sports cards. So with the surface on gaming cards, the biggest differences you have from sports, non-sports cards is what's called a wear coat. And this wear coat was applied to these cards during the manufacturing process to prevent the cards from getting scuffed up and beat up during gameplay. The cards would typically be played without sleeves sometimes, so the cards would be getting shuffled together, thrown on play mats, things like that. So they really wanted to make these cards quite durable for gameplay so they would last multiple games. Also, sometimes you'll see a thing called a texture. A lot of the more coveted rares will have these textures on the cards, which kind of acts as a wear coat as well, but gives the card kind of a unique look. So the wear coat is quite easily seen on these gaming cards when you just hold it at what we call a high sheen angle. So that's going to be an angle of light where the light bounces off the card and you're not even seeing the detail of the card. All you're seeing is a reflection of the light on the card. That wear coat will definitely bounce that light off, and all you're going to see is just whatever defects might pop up on the surface. Another defect you can check out when you're looking at that high sheen angle is sometimes creases will pop out. So that's going to be happening from a card getting bent really a little too severely and actually causes the paper to buckle. So this card here actually has a nice crease on it right on the edge, and that's going to cause a very low surface grade. Creases are some of the worst things you can have that are wrong with a card. This one's quite subtle, but it is definitely there. Depending on the severity of the crease, if there's color loss from the crease breaking the paper, if the card's actually torn because of the crease, it's all going to vary in how we grade the surface on a card. So with grading Pokemon cards, the biggest ones you're usually going to see are these old Wizards of the Coast holo cards. So the holographic cards are ones that have the entire art box just filled with this beautiful holo pattern, and typically the character, the Pokemon, will just be regular ink. So the holo pattern is one that can just pick up scratches very easily. Even straight from the manufacturer, you're going to have these holo lines that go across, and it's just something that you see coming right out of the pack. Typically, the ones that are manufacturing defects will just be perfectly straight, either vertical or horizontal lines, whereas mishandling of the card will cause these holo scratches to be all over the place. Circles, different lines. This one, in the case of, has a bunch of handling defects. So you have a bunch of scratches on the bottom here. You can see them right below Victory Bell here on the left as well, on the right. So you have quite a few little problem areas on the holo of this card. And that's going to greatly affect the surface grade for cards like this. This one's, it's moderate, I would say. There's nothing that's really losing ink or going down to the core of the card, which is very key. So, in this instance, I'd probably say a 7.5 surface grade is probably going to be where this card would lie. You have other cards, like this one's another example of the same card. And this one actually has a much nicer surface. You only have a few little wisps of scratches here in the holo that you catch only on certain angles. So, it's very important to roll a card like a coin when looking at the surface as well, because that'll give you the different angles of light that you need to reflect off these defects and make them visible to your eye. So like with this one, you can have it at a certain angle and all of a sudden it looks perfectly clean. There's nothing there. Nothing wrong with the card at all. You tilt it ever so slightly. Now I see some scratches right below Victory Bell here. You see some on the left here. Very subtle. So you're looking at like probably about an 8.5 surface grade on this card because of just the holo. Overall, not too bad. A nice example. Then you have some of them that look just absolutely gorgeous as well. So I'm pretty sure I brought a really nice one in here. Yeah, that's Rocket's Hitmonchan. So this one here is actually about as nice as it can get. Straight from the pack, the holo is beautiful. You get a nice swirl there right on the end of his glove. So the swirl is part of a surface, that little tidbits that people like when they're collecting. But this card is very nice. There's a couple wisps of factory line. This card's easily going to attain a 9.5 surface grade. For a Wizards of the Coast era card, incredibly rare to see. This card just is beautiful. Absolutely stunning. The back of the card has no defects on it, perfectly level and flat, and it's just got a great look to it. Nothing's disturbing the wear coat. An amazing card here for the surface grade. So you might hear me say handling defects versus manufacturing defects, and in our mind, basically a handling defect is something that happened outside the print facility. So when you open up that pack, you drop it on the ground, that's going to be a handling defect. Whereas when the card's getting manufactured and it's going through the rollers to put them into the packs, and say the rollers is wound a little too tightly so it just drags a line across the card when it's being made, that's going to be a manufacturing defect. So manufacturing defects are handled a little bit more differently than the handling ones. We actually treat them a little bit lighter because this is something that can happen to the entire print run. Sometimes the entire print run can be affected by this certain defect, and we'll be a little bit more generous in the grade with those just because of how common they are. Whereas a handling defect is something that just happened because someone was not handling it properly. and those will actually hamper the grade more. So one of the biggest problems you can have with a holographic card of Pokemon is you can have a scratch that goes so deep, actually, it shows you the hollow layer below the surface of the ink. So this hollow layer is actually over the entire card, and they print the ink on top of it. So what happens is there's an opaque layer of ink that goes down, which is just white, and then another layer of the colored ink goes over the top of it. And in this case, there's actually in the top right corner, there's a spot where the ink is just completely just shaved away down to the hollow layer. So you can see it bounce off your eye quite easily. It's right up here in the top right corner. And that's a big problem for us when we're grading a card. If a card's been scratched so severely that you can see through the entire ink to the hollow layer, that's something we're going to affect the grade with quite greatly. Sometimes you'll see it all over the card, a very poor card. In some situations, you can have one just a spot like this, but even a small spot like this is going to drastically affect the condition. So, a card like this is probably going to be in the 6 range, just because of that one small spot. Deep scratches like that really greatly affect the eye appeal are going to hamper the grade for sure. So to wrap things up, the surface grade is one of the most impactful grades a card can have as far as, the condition of the card. Like I said, there's so much area that can be affected. So when you're looking at the surface of the card, you want to be very careful to inspect every bit of the card, the front, the back, and just make sure there's nothing hidden there that you shouldn't see. Again, always want to look at the card in different viewing angles is the most important thing. And just be very careful and just very cautious when you're looking at the cards. Try to handle them with care, and you'll be fine. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for new episodes on CGC Cards Grade School.